All right, this week's training is actually sponsored by the InBody Band 2 Analyzer. It's an activity tracker, and like most activity trackers out there, it does some of the basic stuff that you may be accustomed to, like your daily activity as far as steps in your cardio goes. And for me, someone who works from home a majority of the time and trains from home all the time, it's a really strong reminder that I need to be more active, because even looking at my activity the past week, you can see that it is pretty poor. I think most people set the goal of 10,000 steps per day, and I am not near that. So I'm going to start doing some cardio stuff as well, just to get my activity level up a little bit. And this also helps you track that and tells you exactly where you fall within that range. Other interesting things it can do, it does easy training, which means it can track some of your training and your reps. You can actually put circuits together, and it has about 20 different exercises. So I actually used it for a couple of exercises this week, and I filmed myself doing it just to see if it did track it. So I'm going to show you a clip of bench press right here, and as you can actually see, it is tracking the rep. So that was something that I found pretty interesting and I haven't really seen before. It also does your body composition. Again, good reminders to show you where you're at, as well as sleep analysis and some other interesting things. So if you want to find out more about this, I'll go ahead and link it in the description box below, and thanks to them for sponsoring this week's training. Speaking of this week's training, what I'm going to try to do is, I'm still going to try to show you my accessory work, but I'm going to kind of just show you some snippets of that and probably just try to show you the main compounds. And one of the things I want to talk about from my first day of training this week is I'm trying to widen my squat stance some. So here I'm showing you a 3/4 angle, a side view angle, and finally a front on angle. And I definitely need to make sure that my feet are pointed in the same direction. And I have a little bit of issues with my hips. They're a little bit wonky. You might have seen this in my squats before, but this wide stance really kind of overemphasizes that. But these felt really comfortable and actually didn't make my knees crack, which was interesting. Not that my knees cracking has ever caused me issue, but it's just interesting to see that that's the case. From there, I also did some pause squats, and these were something I haven't done in a really long time, so I was happy to throw these back in. And a lot of times for these accessory movements, as I mentioned in the past, my goal is each time I do them is just try to slightly increase the weight. So for the ones I'm just starting out doing again, I'm not starting at a very heavy weight because these wreck me the next couple of days after. Also doing some stiff-legged or Romanian deadlifts here, depending on what you want to call them, as well as my favorite incline dumbbell rows, which will make anybody look jacked, even me. So from there, next day, moved on to some bench work and just did a couple of triples here with 120 kilos. And one of the things I really want to focus on is this pause. I'm not going to really work on overemphasizing my arch. What I find, especially when I start to try to push my feet back more and really push my arch, is that I actually feel like I don't have as much pressing power, and that's just something that's always been an issue for me. So I'm just going to go back to the old ways where I just feel comfortable and where I felt stronger overall. So let's see how that goes. I also did some incline work as well as some overhead press, which I am terrible at. So I'm thinking that if I'm able to get better at overhead press, then that hopefully will translate to a better bench, because right now I have a shitty bench and a shitty overhead press. So if I improve one, maybe the other will go up. And of course, just some face pulls too to make sure that I get that rear delt work. Took 2 days off after that, was feeling just a little beat up, and that's what I'm going to do is just basically play it by how I feel with when my days off are and how long they are. Did some triples here for deadlifts of 225 or 496 pounds. Conventional, felt pretty good. Assistance work called for alternate stance deadlift, so went with my modified sumo stance here. Again, I mentioned my hip issues earlier, and this is where I feel most comfortable. And stronger wrist. These went pretty good, just did these for sets of 5, and even though they felt pretty good, they're not good enough where I would consider switching over to this. But I do want to work on them. I think, again, it will translate well, and then maybe eventually work on getting a little bit wider, getting my hips open more, and maybe my butt down some. And then I moved on to some box squat work, and again, really been liking these, and this is one of the reasons that I switched to the wider stance earlier in the week, just because I've been feeling really comfortable doing these and a little bit wider stance. Then some of these, T-bar rows / pendlay rows, just trying to get some explosiveness in, and I'm trying to add in back work wherever I can. Then finished off the week with some more bench work, just lighter work this particular day, but again, still working on that pause. Threw in some floor presses for the first time in a long time. Did some sets of 5 with 120. These felt pretty good. I'm never really sure if I should put my feet up or down, but this just feels more comfortable. So that's what I did, and I'm not really necessarily trying to impress anybody on the internet. So I'm sure you guys will tell me I should be putting my feet down anyways. And then again, just some incline dumbbell work, and that was the end of the training this week. As always, thanks for watching these little shitty videos. We'll talk to you next time. In the meantime, stay big.